Hi everyone. I hope you're well. So I'm Elizabeth, and in this lesson, I will particularly be taking you through ER diagramming conventions. So the lesson covers the following objective, that is to construct an entity relationship diagram, construct ER diagram components that represent entities, attributes, and relationships according to diagramming conventions. So the purpose of the lesson, so as you can see from the slide, people speak different languages throughout the world, but some signs are understood globally. And basically what we are saying, when it comes to database design and when we are drawing designs to represent a database, they are supposed to be drawn in a manner that any other person from whichever part of the country or in the world, anyone who is dealing with databases, they can be able to understand your diagram. And when we talk about an entity relationship diagram, this is basically a diagrammatic representation of a database. So as you can see here, we have some signs, and some of these signs are international, and you can be able to associate, or you can be able to relate with some of these signs, or you can be able to interpret what they mean. So here we have a few signs and with their meanings. So basically, when we are talking about coming up with database designs, we are looking at drawing conventions which are known across board. So from this, how well did you perform on this? You can see we have the first one. The first one implies crosswind. Probably this is not so much around in Kenya, or if it is around, is a bit different. You can see we have a roundabout, number 2. We have no entry for vehicles carrying more than a certain quantity of explosives or readily inflammable substances. We have number 4, that is lane for slow vehicles. Then we have number 5, that is stop in Brazil. Number 6 is low clearance. And then we have number 7. So those are some of the meanings for those signs that we can see there. Probably we knew some, maybe some we didn't know, maybe we have not come across. But basically those are signs which they are international, or they are signs that you'd actually find in multiple countries, and they imply or mean the same thing. So on shared conventions, it is efficient to communicate information in a way that can be easily understood by many people. ER diagramming is like that. You may say or write things differently because of the way you speak, your accent, and so on. But everyone draws an entity relationship diagram according to the same convention. So we have a small scenario here, the HR system. And in the HR system, we have quite a number of entities. For instance, we have the employees, we have the job, and we have the department entity. So in this particular lesson, we are going to look at how we can be able to model a HR database system, and we have 3 entities that we are going to illustrate the same. So from this small business scenario, it says we need to store data about each of our company's employees. We need to track each employee's first name, last name, hire date, and salary. And for each employee on commission, we need to track his or her potential commission. Each employee is allocated a unique employee number. Our company is divided into departments. Each employee reports to a department, for example, accounting department, sales department, or development. We need to know the department responsible for each employee, and each department has a unique number. All employees hold a job, and we keep track of the employee's job title, maximum and minimum salary for each job, and every job has a unique ID. So the diagram you are seeing on the screen is basically an entity relationship diagram, and we can be able to see we have three entities. We have the employee entity, and the employee entity has a number of attributes. For instance, we have the employee ID, we have the first name, the last name, the hire date, salary, and commission. On the department entity, we have two attributes there. We have the department ID and the department name. And then on the job entity, we have the job ID, the job title, the maximum salary, and the minimum salary. So this is how we represent our entities. We have the entities and their attributes, and then we have those lines between the entities. Those are basically referred to as relationships. So we can see there's a relationship between employee and department. And if I can read that, it says employee, each employee works in one and only one department, and each department is responsible for one or more employees. If I can read the relationship between employee and job, it states each employee must be assigned to one and only one job, and each job may be assigned to one or more employees. So here drawing conventions, from what we have seen in the diagram, you can see entities are represented by soft boxes. So we have our entities, and the entity name goes into the soft boxes. So you can see we have employee, job, department. Entity names are always singular and written with capital letters. Still on the same, attributes are listed under the entity names. We can see that in the three entities. Mandatory attributes are marked with an asterisk. So you can see there is an asterisk before some of the attributes, and those are mandatory attributes. And as we looked at in a previous lesson, we said mandatory attributes, you must have a value to them. Then optional attributes are marked with a circle. So for instance, we can see we only have one optional attribute, that is commission, because commission is not necessarily that an employee earns a commission. They may earn maybe based on pertaining or reaching a specific target, or they may probably not earn a commission. So that is optional. It may have a value or it may not have a value. Then remember we talked about unique identifiers. What distinguishes one instance of an entity from the other? Unique identifiers are marked with the hash sign. So you can see for each entity, we have unique identifier. In the employee, we have employee ID, department, we have department ID, and job, we have the job ID as the unique identifiers. Then relationships are lines that connect entities, as mentioned. These lines are either solid or dashed, and these lines terminate in either a single toe or crossfoot at the end of each entity. We will be looking at this in a different session, just to try and elaborate more on relationship. But this drawing convention is normally referred to as a crossfoot notation. So where you see the crossfoot, it implies many, and where we have the single toe, where it terminates as one single toe, it implies one. So here we have that. And then you can also see the relationship. In the lines, we have the relationship names. So here we have works in, here we have responsible for. Here we are saying this implies many, where it terminates as a crossfoot, and then where it terminates as a single toe, that is one. So for the solid line, this implies it's a mandatory relationship, and this is optional. We will look at this at least in the next session. So based on what we have covered, some of the key terms that we expected to have learned from this lesson is a softbox, and basically this is a diagram that represents an entity. So we've talked about here diagramming. Crossfoot represents many, single toe represents single, and that brings us to an end. So basically in this lesson, we have learned how to construct an ER diagram, the components that represent entities and attributes according to the diagramming convention. And that brings us to an end. So basically, by the end of this lesson, we are expected to be able to come up with such Once we have analyzed a business scenario, we should be able to come up with an entity relationship diagram. That brings us to the end of this lesson. Thank you very much. I hope we will interact more in the coming sessions.